Hey, this is Austin Weber with Weber Bracketology, where every day is Selection Sunday, and we are about halfway through the timeline for players entering the transfer portal for this college basketball season. And this last week has honestly, I thought it would slow down, but it's kind of just been going and going and going. There's been some more star players entering, some surprising ones too, and with the coaching changes, there have been some teams that have lost a bit more than others. VCU is probably the biggest victim when it comes to losing players after Coach Mike Rhodes went to Penn State. But they lost Ace Baldwin, Jalen Deloach, Jaden Nunn. They've lost a number of really good players, and I'm hoping Ryan Odom will be able to rebuild that because Utah State, his former school, has also been losing players like Sean Bairstow, Max Shulk, and Stephen Ashworth. And I do think there's a chance they'll go out to VCU. But geographically, I think that that just might end up being a bit of a stretch for them. With new coach Amir Abdur Rahim from Kennesaw State USF, they've lost some players like Russell Shua and Jameer Chaplin, but they did get some big commits from some of Abdur Rahim's former players. So, whereas the other teams haven't really had that much, they haven't had those players coming in. South Florida has actually gotten off to a pretty good start with their new coach in the transfer portal. Utah coach Mark Madsen, he left for Cal, so like all these other teams, they lost players like Justin Harmon, Latrey Darthard. So like when these players, they came to these schools to play for these coaches, so it's only kind of natural that they're going to end up leaving when their coaches do. Whether or not we start seeing all these players, like the Kennesaw State players going to South Florida, going with their new coach, maybe with their coach to the new school. I really like when that happens personally, just because I like the cohesiveness so that it kind of shows that they are sticking with the coach, but really there's no way to tell what they're going to do. Speaking of players leaving because their coaches are leaving, the biggest, honestly, he might be the biggest player in the whole transfer portal. Max Asmus from Oral Roberts. Paul Mills left for Wichita State. So he's in the transfer portal, and I mean, the dude's just a walking bucket. I mean, whatever school gets him, he could be the star at a high major program, and he probably will wherever he goes. He's going somewhere big. So honestly, he's the best player probably to enter the transfer portal so far. But it's not without competition even this week. Hunter Dickinson, he's leaving Michigan, which that one really surprised me. I kind of just thought he was going to stay there, but with the way Michigan played last year, I don't know. Juwan Howard's tenure isn't looking great for Michigan, especially compared to the success they were having with John Beilein. And I guess he kind of just want to change his scenery because, I mean, he was getting all the minutes. He was the focal point of the team. He's a dominant post player, and he's going to be a dominant post player wherever he goes. It'll be at a high major school. One that really surprised me today, as I was getting ready to make this video, Ryan Nemhard left Creighton, which really just surprised me because that Creighton group, those starting five, well, the four of the five starters last year, they had been together for 2 years. I mean, in continuity like that, and they were still going to be there unless some of them enter the draft. But he's the only one that did today, so we'll see what happens with the rest of the players. But Ryan Nemhard, I mean, he is a star lead guard. So he'll be amazing wherever he goes, and he'll fit in pretty much anywhere. LJ Cryer is a scorer, and leaving Baylor, that's really just surprising given the culture there with Scott Drew. I'm really surprised a player would leave Baylor. They're just so successful, but LJ Cryer is leaving, and he's going to go somewhere, and he's going to be someone who can, kind of like Max Asmus, he's a walking bucket. He can score from any level. He can do really whatever you need. So he's going to be a hot commodity in the transfer portal. One that kind of just shocked me a little bit was Tremont Mark leaving Houston. With Houston going to the Big 12 next year, it kind of hurts them because they're losing one of their more talented players. So that's going to hurt them, though. I mean, I have faith that they're going to be contending for a Big 12 title next year, probably. Losing Tremont Mark just kind of hurts them. Some other stars that are entering the portal, Harrison Ingram from Stanford. He never really got his career going at Stanford. Stanford just isn't good, so it's not surprising that he's going somewhere to look for a change of scenery. But then there's Olivier Kamwa from Tennessee. He was very successful, and Tennessee was very successful, but maybe he's going to play somewhere maybe somewhere for tournament success, because the way Tennessee plays, I just don't feel like that style is built for tournament success. So I think that might be one of the reasons why he's going somewhere else. And then Ellis is leaving Louisville, which is kind of he was their best player on a bad team. And I know you don't want to lose your best players when you're already bad, but sometimes it's good to get a fresh start because I mean you're bad for a reason. The players aren't performing, though he was. I think him leaving gives him a fresh start and Louisville a bit of a fresh start with their roster. There was a number of other high major players that are leaving. There's Jaden Bradley from Alabama. He had a good season. I think he's going to take a big jump wherever he goes, so he could end up being a star somewhere. Simus Lukosius from Baylor was a good scorer as a sophomore. Then you got a player like Caleb Mills from Florida State, who I thought he was going to go there and be very successful, but Florida State was just bad last year, kind of like Louisville, just really, really bad. So he's going to get a nice new fresh start. Same with Qudus Wahab from Georgetown. Georgetown was bad. They got a new coach coming in with Ed Cooley, but he decided not to stay. He probably went there to play for Patrick Ewing, given that he's a big guy. So he's going to go look for somewhere else to play. And then from Gonzaga, they're Hunter Salas and Efton Reed. Salas, he was a high recruit, but he never really got going during his career at Gonzaga. So it's not too surprising that he transferred. And Efton Reed, I just didn't think was even a good fit for Gonzaga, just the way he plays and the way they play. So that's not too surprising that he's leaving either. Illinois took another big hit, losing R.J. Melendez. So they're losing a lot of their young talent. They already lost Sky Clark and Jaden Epps. So Illinois is going to be in for a bit of a rebuild if they don't do some work in the transfer portal. Jalen Hill's leaving Oklahoma, and he's a very good defender. He's a good scorer. I mean, he's a good stable player for them. So he'll go somewhere and he'll be a good contributor, but that just kind of sucks for Oklahoma to lose a player like that. And then St. John's, Rick Pitino is going to be even in more of a hole to start his tenure there, as Andre Curbelo and David Jones, one of their leading scorers, have both entered the transfer portal. Lots of mid-major guys have obviously entered the transfer portal, but this week there was quite a few that can just get buckets. A lot of really good scorers are leaving these mid-major programs, like Latrell Wrightsell from Cal State Fullerton, Anthony Delorso from Campbell, Steele Venters, he's leaving Eastern Washington, and I saw that he's getting some high major offers. Aaron Estrada from Hofstra, big-time scorer. He's going to be looking for a high major team to play at. Dennis Jenkins from Iona. He might be following Rick Pitino to St. John's. We'll see about that. Will Baker from Nevada. He was once, I believe, a 5-star recruit. Started at Texas, went to Nevada. So he might get some high major interest there. Tyler Perry from North Texas with his coach leaving. It's not too surprising that he's going somewhere else. He might follow to Texas Tech. We'll have to see about that. Keelan Boone and from Pacific and DJ Davis from UC Irvine. Those are two West Coast players that honestly could go to a Pac-12 school or Mountain West school and honestly be pretty big-time scorers. So there's a lot of mid-major scorers to pick from in this transfer portal, especially just in the last week. Players signing with schools, that started to pick up this week. With the high major schools, I started to notice a lot more players signing. Kirk Kriisa is leaving Arizona and going to West Virginia. It'll be interesting how he fits. West Virginia, they're not the press Virginia team they've been. They can score. They play a little bit faster, so he should fit in there pretty well. Nemari Burnett is going to Michigan. He's leaving Alabama, going to Michigan. That's good because they are losing some talent, and Michigan really just needs some players. And Nemari Burnett, he can score at all 3 levels. He's not going to be the guy, but I mean he's a good rotational piece, and he could very well start. Jameer Nelson Jr., probably the best point guard to enter the transfer portal, chose TCU, which is a huge get. He's a defensive guard, and that just fits right in with TCU. They like to play tough defense and get him to transition and score. Jameer Nelson Jr. is perfect for that, so he's going to be a force in the Big 12. Cam Martin never really got any playing time at Kansas, and now he's going to Boise State, where they're losing a little bit of talent there. So I think he should definitely at least get some minutes there, and he'll help Boise State. Probably they're looking to be maybe the favorite in the Mountain West, just how they're looking right now, just because San Diego State is losing so much. So Cam Martin never really got time at Kansas. He should get plenty of time at Boise State. The trio from Kennesaw State that committed to follow their coach at South Florida, Brandon Stroud, Kason Jennings, and Chris Youngblood. I mean, they were amazing for Kennesaw State this year. They almost got that upset on Xavier. So, I mean, South Florida, I mean, we'll see how they compete in the American Conference, and the American's going to be a little bit weaker next year. So I think they're talented enough to play in that level of conference. So South Florida could be a team that surprises next year. Kamari Lands left Louisville, and he's going to Arizona State. We'll see how that fits. Arizona State has kind of been a borderline tournament team these last few years, sometimes playing in the first four, sometimes just missing out. So let's see if he can resurrect his career that he didn't really get started at Louisville. Eddie Lampkin chose to go to Colorado. We'll see how he plays there. He's not much of a volume scorer. He's a big presence in the middle that can rebound and defend. So, I mean, he's a good piece there at Colorado if they're trying to build a good roster to compete in the Pac-12. I mean, he's a solid starting center. Stephen Clark from the Citadel, he's going to South Carolina, which is kind of what I assumed just given the location of where they're at. He's a slashing forward. He can shoot. He's a good shot blocker. South Carolina, if they want to compete, he's a good piece to build around for that team in the SEC. Jordan Wright is staying in the SEC, transferring from Vanderbilt to LSU, and LSU needs some players. I mean, they had some Murray State talent playing there last year, but they really just weren't very good, not as good as I thought they would be. So Jordan Wright is someone who has shown he can produce at a high level in the SEC. So I think he'll be a good fit there at LSU. Keon Menafield going to Arkansas. He had a really good freshman year at Washington, averaging 10 points a game. He's athletic, can play pretty fast, and I think he's going to fit in great at Arkansas. They need some more players to plug in for next year, and I think that's a great get for Eric Musselman, who's fantastic in the transfer portal. So not really surprising that they were able to get a player that talented. Noah Reynolds going to Wisconsin. It's a pretty good get for Wisconsin, a team that can't score the ball at all. My brother's a Wisconsin fan, and constantly he's complaining about this to me, but Noah Reynolds, he had a really good year for Wyoming when they were really a bad team, but honestly, Wisconsin could just use anyone that can score points. Jamison Battle from Ohio is going to Ohio State. Ohio State needed just a little bit more veteran talent. They were kind of young last year. They had some decent offensive players, but really they need someone who can play. He can play down low. I mean, he can play outside. He has a really good three-point shot. So that's a really good pickup there. And then Joshua Cohen from St. Francis, one of the leading scorers in the country last year. He's going to be going to UMass. Not surprised he didn't go to a higher level team than that, just because I don't think he's the athlete to play at a higher level. But that's going to be a really good pickup for UMass, and he'll be able to succeed there in the Atlantic 10. So yeah, this last week, I mean, I keep waiting for it to slow down, but it just keeps going and going. The transfer portal, we still got till May 11th, so a little bit over a month. There's been some really good pickups so far, but there's so many players, like 1,000 players still haven't committed anywhere. So it's going to just be going probably all summer long. That's just the deadline to enter. But if you enjoyed this video, make sure you like and subscribe here for more college basketball content. And I hope you enjoyed the national championship game on Monday. And it's officially the college basketball offseason, so let's get excited for it.